the madhouse.
Cheers to episode 9.
To episode 9.
So 9.
Water.
Svetka.
Dr. McGillicuddy's back on it.
So I'm the only one that didn't do alcohol.
You're preparing for
I didn't do
the big
alcohol
weekend.
last week. It's okay.
Today is Monday, March 15th, 8:04 p.m. And we have a big, beautiful bracket.
For what? What sport is this?
It was robbed of us last year. It was devastating, but that's in the past, and we live in the present now. But before we get into that big, beautiful, audacious bracket, how are each of you this week? Let's catch up with everyone.
Monday. It's pretty early in the week. Not much has happened.
Last
week.
Yes, there you go.
Last week, championship week for college basketball was pretty fun to watch.
No, you as a person.
Yes, I'm telling you, I enjoyed watching championship week.
Nothing outside of sports to talk about for you?
No, I live a boring life with a 9-to-5 job.
Indianapolis game was not fun. Afterwards was fun. I don't remember the name of the bar that we went to. It was Beaver something.
Beaver Saloon?
And it was Beaver Saloon. Is that quoted?
I think
Sure. In Indianapolis, karaoke night. Been drinking all day, and things got wild. Shout out to Sober Mike, I believe, was at the bar doing karaoke. Friday was rough, to say the least. That 4-hour car ride was long, but also short because I basically slept the entire way home.
Look at you.
What was it like to be at a game in person for the first time in a while?
We were up in the nosebleeds. Shout out Luke, who sat with me. But it was actually very, very enjoyable to be at a game with other fans, to see other fans. And it was kind of weird that was the first time I got to actually see Michigan State in person all year. And it's been since Cassius Winston game, I think I saw a game in person.
Michigan State, Ohio State.
Senior night?
Day?
Yeah, Michigan State, Ohio State senior night. I think that was the last time I saw a Michigan State game in person. So
Wow.
a full year.
Wow.
And the bar scene, because I guess most of our audience probably lives in Michigan, and we've been a stricter state than most in the country. What's the indie bar scene like? Are we missing out?
You are. I was joking with my friend Luke yesterday, 2 nights ago. Like, you know what? We might just take a 4-hour trip and go back to the same old bar. It was, people were masked into the bar, and then once you got in the bar, you're just having a good time. You're in just a bar with a bunch of friends, karaoke, bunch of randoms that got along. Shout out to they called it the Beaver beer. It was Busch Light, $1.50 Busch Lights, all you can drink. Just down the hatch.
Wow. What song did you sing for karaoke?
Mackenzie and I sang Dirt Road Anthem, Jason Aldean.
Classic.
And then as a group, how many was there of us? 6 of us? 5 of us? We sang, what's the song? Oh my God, I'm blanking. This is embarrassing.
Sweet Caroline.
Sweet Caroline, there it is.
Alex, were you there?
I saw a lot of Snapchats.
Nice. So even though the game wasn't great, Evan still managed to have fun at the Beaver Saloon.
Sounds like it was a
Yep.
movie.
It was a movie. And then Friday morning was a shit show, to say the
It was
least.
a horror
A
film.
nightmare.
Yes. Feel bad whoever I clean up that hotel bathroom. Ugh.
Well, I've been living through my own personal nightmare this week. So my catch-up is I'm in an all-out 12-round fist fight with fruit flies. And they are unrelenting. Now, I know what everyone's thinking when I say fruit flies. That I'm a dirty person and I live in a dirty apartment. Well, you're wrong. It's not that I'm dirty. It's just that the weather turned warm and had some influx of fruit into the apartment. Hence the name fruit flies. Had a problem with them once earlier in the year. They just kind of went away when the weather got colder. It was a good timing, but now they seem to be back. And I kid you not, like they love to hang out in the bathroom or the kitchen. You open the bathroom,
Stinky.
and there's nothing worse than just trying to take a pee and 10 fruit flies are just swarming your head. Yeah, so just buzzing around you while you're trying to do your business. So shout out to our friend named Ben, had some ideas through his work experience on how to kill said fruit flies, some fruit fly traps. Basically, you just put a substance. We went with apple cider vinegar, which smells atrocious. I don't even know why I used to drink that sometimes. I guess it's supposed to be healthy for you, but overrated. You put it in a glass, saran wrap, poke holes through it, and those dumb flies just fly in, and they get stuck, and they die. And it worked.
Tortured.
Worked great. You wake up, and no, there's a better feeling, but it's a pretty good feeling to wake up to like 20 fruit flies just killed in a glass created by you. Now, again, 20 fruit flies I promise you, it's not because I'm a dirty person. They just come in through the windows and such. But now it seems like things are settled. But this leads me to my point is why it's a fight is because in order to get the vinegar to really attract them, you're supposed to warm it up because then it gives the aroma off. And I've been doing okay warming it up earlier in the week. But last night, after a long Sunday of Sunday selection brackets, I warmed it up before going to bed, and I put it in the microwave way too long, probably like 40 seconds, and no top on it in a glass. And I'm just standing there opening the fridge, and you just hear a boom, just explodes in the microwave. There is apple cider vinegar on the ceiling of the microwave, left and right, and it smelled like butt, hot butt in the steaming microwave. So I had to just bury my head in there with the Clorox wipe and clean that out, and it still kind of smells today. But overall, I think I'm winning the fight, but the fruit flies have been fighting back. So that's just kind of the mental space that I'm in heading into this show. But it's March, so we're moving on to bigger and better things. Shoe fly, don't bother me. Wasn't that like a little child song back in the day? Shoe fly, don't bother me. Shoe fly.
Sounds like
shoe
you know
fly,
it, but
shoe fly, don't bother me.
I'm not
Shoe
familiar.
fly.
I read Captain Underpants.
You guys want to get to Michigan State and Michigan recaps of basketball games this week?
I'd love to talk about the Players' Championship.
Well, no. Let's start with Michigan State. They only had one game this week to recap, which is a nice change of pace considering we've been breaking down like 3 games at a time in the other episodes. So they played Maryland in the first round of the Big Ten tournament. Evan was there. Not a big deal, as he said. And they lost the game 68-57. Lucas Oil Stadium, 11:30 a.m. Referees Steve McJunkins, Rob Riley, and Bo Borowski. Pretty great officiating crew, I would say. Your guys' thoughts on the Michigan State game as Michigan State fans who aren't necessarily biased, they see the bigger picture.
Yeah. Well, I have some harsh words for the refs, but I'm never going to attack refs. So I'm not going to say it, but I have harsh words in my head that I would love to say.
You're going to hold back what you really think? That's almost a slap in the face to everyone that listens to this show.
Say it.
Well, all right, fine. I'll say it. Bo Borowski loves to make college basketball about himself, and it's ridiculous. You're ruining college basketball, and mainly ruining Big Ten basketball when you don't allow teams to get into flows because he blows his whistle every 20 seconds. If there's potentially a foul on the horizon, he's blowing the whistle before it even happens. It's absurd, and he's ruining basketball. With all that being said, Michigan State played horrendous in the second half. They couldn't shoot. Maybe it was the big, giant stadium. I don't know. Michigan State doesn't match up with Maryland. My hot takes last week of how Michigan State's going to come out and roll Maryland could not be more. Well, started great. Michigan State started up 12 or something. I was like, wow, I'm a genius. Did not age well. Michigan State got ran out of the gym in the second half. The only reason it was even 11 was because Malik Hall had a decent game down the stretch.
Malik the Freak.
But yeah, I don't know. Maryland's not a good matchup. Glad we don't have to play Big Ten teams anymore unless we do. But
Credit to you for admitting the whole bad take on the Maryland game. That's a veteran move to get out in front of that before we can make fun of you.
Right.
You said they'd win by 14.
They lost by 11. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being wrong.
Evan?
I agree with Alex. Bo Bobrovsky is a terrible ref, and he's a terrible leader of men. He shouldn't lead a officiating crew. He's I think the oldest on the crew. Don't quote me on it. He seems like he was. And he kept Maryland in that game in the first half. I think they shot 15 of 16 or 16 from 16 in the first half from the free throw line. It was absolutely disgusting. I think they made 7 field goals in the first half. But I would have told you Maryland's going to score 7 field goals in the first half. What do you think the score is going to be?
Michigan State by 14.
Probably Maryland by 4. Just guessing.
Oh, Alex, you guessed it right. Maryland's up 4 at the halftime.
Nice,
we got up 23-11 with about 10 minutes left in the first half. And then our offense got stagnant. Was it the fouls? There were some fouls that were fouls. Don't get me wrong there. But there was also some fouls that you need to eat your whistle and not call it because this is playoff basketball. It hurts because that's not the reason we lost. Absolutely not. But I would say the first half, that's the reason why Maryland got to stay in the game. Because we were holding them to like 27% at one point in the first half. And what's his name? Aila shot 10 for 11 from the free throw line. And he made 5 field goals. So, I mean, it hurts. He finished with 21 points and half your points from the free throw line. Now, second half is a 100% complete different story. And a little bit in part of that game, I think the refs might have been like, hey, let's make this a ball game. And they were kind of calling ticky-tacks on Maryland. And they tried to help Michigan State. Wasn't helping. Wasn't helping. We couldn't shoot. And we finished the game with 18 turnovers, which is a disgusting amount. And these weren't like the quality turnovers that you see in transition that Grant was begging for in the past couple. No, these were turnovers when we're trying to drive in traffic. Not going to happen. They were bad half-court offense turnovers that derail whatever you had going. And I think we got it within 8 or 9 at one point. And then they went on like a 7-0 run. Then we got back within like 10. And I think they made like 2 and ones. That's what I'm trying to say. So that didn't help. Player-wise, Malik Hall looked good. But the second half, it was kind of I wouldn't say garbage minutes because the game's not over with, but it was not a full stat line. Don't get me wrong, he made some nice moves. It's promising to see. However, Langford looked hideous. And I was standing up in the upper deck screaming to take him out. And I don't know if it was from my angle, but some of his threes looked like they barely grazed the rim. I thought one of them just hit the backboard, like it wasn't even close. And I was begging him to take him out. Now in the second half, when we're derailed, I mean it's over. I don't understand why you're keeping Langford in. I get it that he's a senior, and that might be the only reason. When I am seeing Gabe Brown just standing up on the bench, just standing there, not moving. He stood in like the same exact stance for 5 minutes. Put Gabe in, and I'm not the biggest Gabe Brown fan because I don't think he plays defense that well, but he will give you a spark offensively, good or bad. And then I don't agree with Hogard coming in over Gabe Brown. I get it. You want to put Rocket off the point guard, but Rocket made a couple nice plays in the first half. There's my frustration. It's not good. We shot 41% from the field, 4 for 16 from 3, and 50% from the free throw line. Turnovers. And I'm glad I'm glad this wasn't the game to try to get us into the tournament. Because if we would have lost the Michigan game, this is a must-win game, and how bad we played in the second half would have been disgusting. Disgusting way to end the season.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like a classic college basketball letdown spot where Michigan State had been basically playing the NCAA tournament for 2 weeks prior with all the games they were must-wins, and then there was that sense of relief that we did it after the Michigan win because every analyst out there had you guys in the tournament. And so then they're like, you know what? This game with Maryland's not do or die, thankfully. Other than that, I don't know. I guess, like Alex said, it just seems like something about Maryland, the matchup that they go small, and then you guys are trying to go small, that they just have more complete small ball type players, faster, quicker. They're a decent shooting team. They're pretty good shooting, so that always comes. They have big guys who can really take threes confidently and make them. Other than that, I mean, like you guys questioned the rotations. I just remember watching the game and thinking I was still like dreaming, seeing Hoiberg and Kithier out there together for extended minutes. And I'm just thinking, like, when you look at who Maryland's bringing out there, it's like there's at least probably 2 mismatches potentially on the floor at one time, and they took advantage of that. Like Evan said, in the second half, seemed like Maryland always had an and one offensive play whenever Michigan State was even close to getting back, or a corner 3 in front of their bench. I vividly remember those happening. So one of those games where they kept their foot on the gas in the second half, and like you guys said, the first half was mucked up by fouls. So that's essentially that going into the NCAA tournament for them. The day after, 24 hours later, Michigan gets their shot at Maryland as the 1 seed, and there was a lot of eyeballs, probably a little nervous eyeballs, I can say, watching Michigan play after losing, 2 out of 3 going into that game. So you're like, we need to see something out of them to feel good about ourselves. And then obviously I don't want to touch on the liver stuff right now. We'll get into that, chronologically. But as you look at the box score, I mean, I guess you can start and stop this game with Mike Smith. I mean, anytime someone's saying a all-time Big Ten tournament record in any category, unless it's like turnovers, it's probably a good thing for your team, and you're probably going to win. So just his stat line again, 15 assists in this game, 18 points, even 5 rebounds, which is crazy. 2 steals. So he was just really all over the place, sparking the offense. Other ones, you have Franz and Eli. Eli was interesting because I guess he was the guy. So much has happened, but that was insane that he started that game. Thinking back to when he got hurt in the Michigan State game, and it seemed like 99% of people were in agreement that Eli will sit the Big East or the Big Ten tournament and be ready for the NCAA tournament. He started, so I guess hat tip to the trainer. His name's Alex Wong from Michigan. Dude's working overtime with all the injuries going on. But Eli started, and you could tell he was off. He airballed his first shot, and it was quite possibly one of the worst-looking shots I've ever seen. He shot a three-pointer, and it barely made it to the restricted area. And so it's like, okay, like, is he really hurt? And he kind of looked a step slow. And then the second half, he got going and finished 4 of 8 from 3. So he was not shy of the moment and making big shots. I guess let's not skip around. The main part was, I guess, the coach ejection in this game.
There was one.
Yes. Juwan Howard was ejected in this game, and it kind of overshadowed all the play for Michigan. I guess it was interesting, just a classic how things get out of control on Twitter with rumors flying of who said what. Definitely guess confirmed from both sides that Mark Turgeon was saying some variation of, I don't want Juwan Howard to talk to me, and let Juwan know that. And as you see the video, Turgeon starts moving towards Juwan, and that is kind of like what set him off on Howard's side, he says. And then he kind of charged back and had to get held back, and he gets ejected. Besides that, I mean, you can get into, like, I'm sure you guys will have your thoughts on, what each person should have done, but it was just crazy watching it because it all happened during a media timeout. So you're just sitting there watching the game. They go to the media timeout. You come back, and shout out Brandon Gaughan, who was the announcer on that game. Butler alum. Shout out.
Not a big deal.
He was just like, all right, we had some fireworks during the media timeout, and then thank goodness they had the replay, the camera rolling, and we could actually see what happened. But it was a crazy moment coming back from a normal media timeout and knowing that your coach just got ejected and they're trying to explain it to you before plays resumed. Crazy scenario. What are you guys' thoughts on either the game or, more importantly, I guess, the ejection? Because that's just kind of like the fun thing to talk about on a podcast.
I wish the banner comment was actually said. I think that would have been,
Yeah, elaborate on that, because I didn't really say what it was.
I don't know the exact quote.
I do.
Because it's not actually real, so it never actually was said, apparently.
The rumor on Twitter that got thrown around fast and irresponsibly was that Mark Turgeon said to Juwan, you might as well not hang up your regular season banner because your banners get taken down anyway. Obviously, taking a shot at when the Fab Five had to take down their banner, which Juwan was a part of. And if that was said, then I could definitely see Juwan snapping on that. Don't ever talk to me again is not as intense, so it's not as fun that didn't happen. And if I was Mark Turgeon, I've heard people say this, if I was Mark Turgeon, I would admit to saying the banner thing because that's just kind of a cool dig.
Great
either
troll.
way.
Great troll move by him. If it was real, unfortunately, it seems like it wasn't. But I don't know. It seems like Mark Turgeon, he just doesn't seem like a very good guy. Seems like a lot of people don't really like him. I mean, Evan's on the big hater Mark Turgeon fan club as well. I mean, I think it was. I'm not a Michigan guy, obviously, but I thought it was cool. Juwan standing up for his players, throwing himself on the line. You don't usually see coaches going in there ready to fight the other coach. I mean, I thought it was pretty cool. I'd be jazzed up if I was a Michigan fan. And everyone that's saying like, "Oh, Juwan's such a lost his mind. He's a bad person." Nah, I mean, if a guy comes at you, grown man, and your emotions are high, you're gonna get pissy. So I don't blame him at all. I thought it was cool. And then Michigan drubbed them after that. So it really got the team going. So I think it was a great move and great television.
Great television.
Game only saw highlights. I was in the car / sleeping the entire time.
Hungover, yes.
I woke up to a notification from ESPN saying Juwan Howard got ejected. And I was like, please. I mean, I guess as the Michigan State fan in me said, please have Michigan be like losing in the spirit of the rivalry. No, it was him attacking Mark Turgeon. And I was like, you know what? Good. Mark Turgeon he looks like a rat, and I don't think many people like him, like Alex said. And I don't like him. I don't blame Juwan Howard for attacking him. And tell me if I'm wrong, but I thought it started off also as Turgeon telling him that Juwan was out of his coaching box.
Yes.
Was that said?
Yeah, so
because if that was said, that is just the biggest Bush League thing of all time. Because every coach in America is outside of their coaching box.
Great point.
They are on the court. They are way past the line. They almost go beyond the boundaries of where you should stand on the basketball court. So that first is Bush League for Turgeon to even say something. And then if you're attacking Howard by saying that, you're going to get backlash.
Stay in your coaching box.
Yeah. And also, it just was a terrible look that he's like a snitch and had talked to the Big Ten commissioner's office about the 2 games prior they had beef then. It's like, and Juwan didn't know about it, he said. So it's like Maryland's just going behind teams' back, annoyed at what teams are doing in the Big Ten. It's like, there's just no time for that. Now, I will say, as Alex said, in the moment, I supported it, but I will say going forward, I've always kind of liked my coach to walk a tight line between not always showing emotion and being controlled. Because I feel like if you get too angry, then your team can sometimes think the moment's too big. I would like him to be a little bit more composed and definitely not let something like that rattle him again. We don't need more ejections, I would say. So I would like him to be a little bit more composed in an ideal world. And he knows that. I mean, the first thing he said was, I apologize to the team for letting the emotions. Because if you as a coach let your emotions get the best of you, then it's tough to expect your players to stay composed when things are unraveling. So going forward for the NCAA tournament, let's keep the ejections aside. Shout out Phil Martelli stepping in with a great quote at the end of the game when they were asking him about what did he see, and he's just kind of I don't really know, I didn't hear it, which is just a lie. There's no way you're sitting there and didn't hear what was being said. And he goes, he just had we'll put the clip in, he had the funniest little grin. He goes, this is March. Just walks off. So funny. And yes, it's just, I don't know, good for him to get in there and get that win. And he was kind of sarcastically waving at Maryland when they were leaving. He might have been being genuine, I don't know. But I guess we have a new rivalry with Maryland going forward in basketball, so that's interesting because they definitely do not like each other. And then that moves on to that night. Grant, about to go to bed. Little drunk, pretty drunk. The classic lay down in bed. Everyone knows it's not good to check your phone right before bed. You get the blue light right in your eyes. You're awake for another 45 minutes to an hour. Let's not kid ourselves.
Everyone does it.
I go on Twitter, the deep web as we say, and this was deep, deep web. I see just a bunch of cryptic gifs of pain or the Mike Scott, no, please God, no. And I'm like, what? What's going on? We beat Maryland. It was awesome. Someone leaked on a Rivals fan board that Isaiah Livers has a stress fracture. Some random kind of bot account. Not a bot, a real person says that. And everyone's like, source. He claimed that guy says his source was Isaiah Livers' parents. Super weird, okay, who do we believe? There's so much smoke, like Evan says, that so much you start to think there's fire. A lot of Michigan fan accounts are say, I don't know. Everyone goes who's your source? Who's your source? So somehow I managed to go to sleep that night, kind of nervous, oh my God, what's going to happen? Wake up, still nothing. I mean, the game's at 1, and I think it was 11:30 or so. They finally drop it and say, yes, he has a stress injury to his foot. They never officially have said that he's fractured his foot, but obviously anyone who knows anything about college basketball and the big time, like Isaiah Livers is, he's as important, I would say, as any player on Michigan. And it's one of those things where like, it almost made sense he ended up being injured because we had talked about how he was making 4 threes a game, going on these runs single-handedly almost. And then ever since that Iowa game, and I should slow down a little bit, the Illinois game is when he hurt this foot. When Austin Davis, they both went for a rebound, Austin Davis landed on him, and he was limping, and he stayed in. So ever since that game, and if you go and look at his stats and look at his play, it kind of aligns as like he was injured and trying to play through this, and it must have gotten to the point. There was one play against Maryland where I did notice I thought he was injured. It was on a chase down block, and he didn't go for it, and he kind of just limped off onto the baseline behind the basket. I'm like, okay, he's not feeling great, obviously, but he's still playing. And he had 0 points against Maryland, didn't make a shot. I mean, even in the Michigan State game, we talked about how a lot of his shots were long. I just think his jump shot got messed up by his foot, probably putting weight on it, the normal shoot, using your legs to shoot. And it shows. I mean, if you go back to the beginning of the year, he is an explosive defender as well, and he is not afraid to try to chase down block you and pin you off the glass, and there was none of that in these last few games. So the injury makes sense. It's awful. It's devastating. It's a classic next man up mentality, and you just got to hope that you can put pieces together. Again, it's one of those things, I guess as a Michigan fan, I would caution them to say you should approach the NCAA tournament with him not playing at all until proven otherwise. You should not hope that you get, just because Eli Brooks came back super fast doesn't mean you should be like, oh, we just got to get through the first weekend and then he's back. He is putting out cryptic tweets. He said, "In chaos lies opportunity," after the bracket was revealed last night. No idea what that means. Does that mean Sean D. Brown has an opportunity, Brandon Johns has an opportunity, or does that mean chaos happens, they get through the first weekend, he has an opportunity now to play?
No, Terrence Williams has
Williams has an opportunity amidst the chaos. I don't know what it means. It doesn't seem great. If it is a stretch fracture, he's probably not coming back. So, it stinks. And then you have to mentally regroup and go play Ohio State, who you had an absolute knockdown fight with the first time you ever played. I've talked a lot. I have a lot of thoughts about the game, but I want to let you guys talk about Michigan Ohio State first because I don't want to keep talking this much.
Okay. I'll go then. Michigan, Ohio State, fresh off the no Isaiah Livers
news.
Yes, but they didn't need him. He played like 15 minutes the game before at 0 points. He hasn't really been like a huge factor the last few games anyways.
They do need him.
They don't need him. They're fine. They need him in the tournament, but it sounds like they may not. But we don't know. You never know. Either way, Michigan did not really play their best game, obviously, until I'm just going to jump right into near the end of the game where Michigan finally found some success, and that was to Hunter Dickinson, the diaper dandy, as Dickie V would say.
You should explain what the viewing situation was here for that.
What do you mean?
When we were watching the game, and I'm spazzing out, you just going like, "What happened? What happened?"
Right. So yes, I thought the game was over, and so I went to go fold up my laundry because that's what I was doing because I don't care that much about Michigan and Ohio State.
Nerd.
So all of a sudden, Grant's off the rails at this point. He's near tears. I mean, he's devastated. The game's over. I go into my room. 5 minutes later, he's just screaming, "Oh my God, my heart can't take this. Why didn't you just lose by 10? Oh my God, they're going to do it. They're going to do it." And so I come out, and it's basically just the Hunter Dickinson show down the stretch, just carrying them, getting them back into the game. Also a little bit of a choke job by Ohio State, blowing that lead. And then all of a sudden, Michigan's got a shot for the win. And I've heard a lot of criticism in the last couple days about it. Mike Smith just dribbled around for 21 seconds and pulled a step-back three. It wasn't a terrible shot by any means. Doesn't go. Buckeyes survive. So it was just one of those things where everyone's like, "Oh, Jawan can't coach. Mike Smith shouldn't know. Why didn't you go to Dickinson down low?" I don't know. Ohio State was hungry. They wanted to win more than Michigan. Michigan needs to rest anyways. I think it was a strategic loss by the Wolverines. Fantastic game.
I don't think Michigan didn't play as good, and it showed in the box score and production that they were getting from players that needed to step up with Livers out. Johnny Brown only had 3 points. He only made 1 field goal. Brandon Johns had 7 points, but all of his points were from the free throw line. Yes, does that mean he's like attacking or he's in there with the ball? Yes, but he's not making any field goals. And then there was at one point in the second half, Michigan had like 45 points. I don't know what the score was. I just remember the stat popped up on CBS. Michigan had 45 points, and 16 of their points at that time were coming from the free throw line. So offensively, this team is built around offense, and so they weren't efficient enough offensively. Granted, Ohio State pissed down their leg towards the end of the game and brought Michigan back into the game. It would have been nice to obviously beat your rival. This isn't just like playing like Minnesota or Northwestern. This is their second biggest rival in basketball. And I mean, Dickinson finished with 21 points, which you would like to see, but not really anybody else. You only had 2 other people in double figures, and that was Mike Smith and Eli Brooks. And Mike Smith finished 1 for 11 field goal wise in the game, and that one field goal was a 3-pointer. So he was 0 for 7 from inside the arc. And so everyone's going to talk about the last shot. And I'm not blaming the coach. I'm not blaming the players. I think he had Lydell on him. Don't get if I'm wrong. Did he? And so technically that's a switch. They switched the screen. Technically it's a mismatch guard on a power forward. You would obviously like to see something attacking the basket, see if the terrible Big Ten refs would have called a foul. But in my opinion, I think I would have gave that ball up or had the ball in somebody else's hand with an option to get Dickinson the ball. But obviously the people don't realize watching the game that Ohio State was just going to switch every screen. So if you try to like say a high pick and roll with Dickinson, they were just going to switch it so Dickinson wouldn't be open on the roll. Overall, other than that, Michigan finished shooting 35% from the field, 31% from three-point line. But they did make 21 free throws compared to Ohio State's 8, so that's what kept them in the game.
Mm-hmm. The way I see it, it'd be a disservice to fans to not be critical at points of this game, and then it also would be a disservice to not give some praise out. So I'm going to try to balance the two here as we go. Before I get going, that Dwayne Washington, I mean, I just feel like he always just makes massive shots.
He's a good player.
Always, like he just comes off those screens and just drills shots. He didn't really get that going until the end of the Illinois game, but both games they played Michigan, dude, he is an absolute bucket. I mean, it's really, if you look at Ohio State's numbers, it's just Dwayne Washington and Liddell. So if you ever play that team again, like just figure out something with at least one of those guys and make the other one just completely beat you. Michigan's side of the ball, I'm going to be critical, first of all, of the whole Franz Wagner falling out situation was a huge lapse in coaching and I guess overall lack of communication. We don't get the backstory of it, but essentially Franz was in foul trouble early in the second half, had 3, and there was a foul called on a drive, and Michigan's coaching staff either didn't press hard enough to figure out who it was on or didn't get the memo, but it was called on Franz and they had no idea. They thought he only had 3, so they left him in. He picks up another foul, is fouled out, and then Phil Martelli has to like press the refs and they almost basically stopped the game trying to figure out if it's 5 on Franz or not. And you just can't have that in a Big Ten semifinal, not knowing exactly how many fouls are on each player, especially your best player, probably him or Dickinson on the floor. So him fouling out, terrible and critical. That's just something if Michigan's going to go, we'll touch on it later. I'll wait for that. But coaching staff wise, you got to know how many fouls are on your guy. I guess praise then would be the way they responded without Franz, because you look at that game, you're down 13 points with 4 minutes left, and you don't have Franz Wagner or Isaiah Livers playing, and you think there's no chance in hell that you're coming back in this game, and they found a way. And then I guess that would turn into a critique. You look at Hunter Dickinson's numbers, and you're like, wow, he must have had a complete game. Well, no, it wasn't really until that last stretch where he got at least like 7 to 8 of those points. I was almost thinking, as this team evolves without Livers, that you almost need to be force-feeding Dickinson more, and not necessarily like being stagnant, but finding those ways to get him involved in pick and roll in an advantageous situation where he's shooting at least like 15 plus times a game, because he's an efficient player. He'll turn over sometimes, but if There's not many guys now on the team with livers gone that can get you 20 in a game. In this team, I think Franz can. I think Hunter Dickinson can. So you need to make your offense go through Hunter Dickinson more because it's very efficient, and he'll get those and ones. And he's a great free throw shooter, so that's a guy that you are happy if he gets fouled to go to the line. Besides that, when it comes to the last play, part of me wants to say that I like the idea of just waiting for that last shot because I guess in my mind, the pro to it is that you're only down 1. So it guarantees you can either go for a 2 or a 3. Because if you miss early in the clock and they get the rebound, they make 2 free throws, then you're forced into a 3-pointer. And usually those don't go well. Usually when a team is forced to go for a 3, everyone knows it, and it's like a fadeaway shot. So I like that, and it's almost kind of like throwing your confidence on the table. That, you know what, we have a guy we think can make a game-winning shot, and we're just gonna let it fall. A timeout. Yeah, I mean, I could see if you had a play that you really wanted to run. I didn't mind the play they ran. I liked the high pick and roll with Mike Smith. Now, I think the key that went wrong is that I think most people can agree the ball should have gone to Hunter Dickinson, but he really wasn't posting up deep enough on the roll. He had a guard on him. I believe it was Justice Suing on him, and that's a mismatch you want. I think Mike Smith was struggling to get around the frame of E.J. Liddell, which you can't blame him. E.J. Liddell is basically their center, and you have Mike Smith, who's the shortest player on the team, trying to get a pass around him. And I think he realized that Hunter Dickinson was posting up at the elbow, and it probably wasn't going to end well. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to try to break off E.J. Liddell, which he did. He got great separation because E.J. was coming off the screen, and he got a clean look at it. Now, again, what Evan said, when you have a guy who's 1 for 10 at that point, maybe that's not the guy you want taking the last shot in that game. For me, watching the game, I would have rather had Eli Brooks take that 3-pointer, off of a action, because he had made 2 or 3 massive 3-pointers in the second half. I guess 2. He had 2. He made 2 big 3-pointers in the second half to keep them in the game and get the momentum going, and he was shooting the best by far of anyone in that game. You want him taking that shot or Hunter Dickinson. That would be my critique. At the end of the day, you got a clean look from 3, and it back rimmed. Stinks. It was devastating. Do I wish they had lost by 10? Not really. This is something you say in the moment. But it was made you want to throw up, the fact that they came in that and then didn't end up winning. But that's March, so oh well. And then the rest of the Big Ten tournament, shout out to us for telling everyone that Illinois was going to win the Big Ten tournament.
Genius.
Yeah.
We are geniuses.
I'm not sure anyone else really thought that Illinois was going to win the Big Ten tournament, but this podcast.
Massive underdogs. Shout out us for having the courage to take them to win it all. Because we were right.
Yeah, look at us going out on limbs, picking the number 2 seed in the Big Ten, probably like the odds-on favorite to win the Big Ten tournament.
The odds-on underdog. It was like picking Nebraska. I mean, it was such a crazy win.
I would say that's a fair comparison.
Yes.